This is going to be the next build here for us. This is the Ultra Stick 1.1 meter wingspan, and I have always wanted to have an Ultra Stick, and now I've got one small enough that I can fly it at the local park. So I'm going to go ahead and break this out of the packaging, and we're going to look at what we've got here. You might notice that the video is in motion now. Had a little bit of a tripod issue, so I'm going to have to film this in segments, unfortunately. But I did go ahead and get it out of the packaging. Everything looks really nice so far. One nice little attention to detail is that they have some string in here that goes to the center section of the wing, so that's going to be nice for pulling the servo wires through. I am planning to make this a 4-servo setup for the wing. So from the factory, there are these pegs that go through your aileron / flap. So this is actually in 2 pieces, your aileron, your flap. If you want to go with a 4-servo setup, you can. You can put a single 9-gram servo here, and that'll give you just one big aileron. What I'm planning to do is use all 4 servo slots. That way I can use the entire thing with mixing as an aileron, or I can throw in some flaps and get a little bit of crow going on as well. So I'm planning to do a 4-servo setup with this. And I have actually flown an e-Flite Ultra Stick before. They had a smaller version back when I used to still fly at the local AMA field, and one of the guys out there let me fly his, and I really did enjoy that plane, and I several times thought about getting one but just never pulled the trigger on it. I always went with a fully 3D airplane. And of course, you know, the Ultra Sticks are in a way a 3D airplane. They're a little bit limited, but yeah, now that I'm kind of getting back into the hobby, I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger on this one. It is a little bit larger, being a 1.1 meter wingspan, but still not too big, and I should be able to fly this at the local park no problem. Now, I did buy the ARF version. You can get this in 2 versions. You can get the ARF, which stands for Almost Ready to Fly, or you can get the Bind and Fly version, which comes with all the electronics installed. All you got to do is throw in a battery and bind the aircraft to your transmitter. But I went ARF because I've got a bunch of parts. I've got a whole bunch of servos and a whole bunch of batteries and stuff. The only thing that I had to order besides the airframe for this build was the motor and the ESC. I have also ordered some batteries. I'll take that back. I have ordered some batteries, but that's only because my other batteries are kind of getting old. But beyond that, I haven't really purchased anything specifically for this build because I already had the parts available. I'm going to go ahead and start throwing the servos in, and once I've got the airplane coming together, I'll show you where I'm at. The airplane does come with stickers and the book of instructions. I did look through it. I didn't see anything groundbreaking. This is going to go together pretty easily, so I probably am not even going to crack the instructions back open. This is a neat little feature. They've got a hatch here you can take off. That's where the servos go for the empennage, so the rear of the airplane. And of course your radio can go there too, I believe. Up top, we of course have the slot for the wing, but we also have this removable compartment where we can throw a battery in here, so that's nice. And these are all magnetic, so once you get them lined up, they just snap back into place. Anyway, let me go ahead and start throwing some electronics in this, and we will see where we're at. So before I actually start installing anything, I just wanted to show you some of the components I'm going to be using here. Probably show them as I install them, but this is a Hobby King Metal Gear servo. This is a digital servo, and you know, some people might say, well, why are you putting such a cheap servo in there? It is a cheap servo, but they are Metal Gear, and they have been pretty reliable for me. They're also rated quite well on the Hobby King website. Now, I bought these, like I said, a long time ago, and I just wanted to go ahead and use them. I've got a bunch of these, and I have tested every single one that I'm going to be putting into the airplane already. What I wanted to show you though when it comes to the servos is the extension wire, because I will need some extension wires for the build. This is an extension wire that has a little locking clip on it. Highly recommend these. I don't think I'm going to be able to slide them together on camera since my tripod isn't working, but what I'm going to do here real quick is just slide one of these together and show you why this is such a critical thing to have. So I've gone ahead and slid the servo's connecting wire into the extension, and as you can see, they lock together. No matter how exuberant you get as far as maneuvering, I'm tugging on these wires, they're not coming apart. This is very important to have good quality locking extensions on your servo wires, in my opinion. You do what you want to do, but I'm definitely, every time I build, I want to make sure that the extension wires are not going to come unplugged. Okay, so I've installed the first servo, and I've run the wire as far as the hole for the second servo, or the flap servo, and you can see I've tied the two extension wires together on the string, which admittedly is very convenient. It would have been nice to have had one to run from there to there, though that was a bit of a bear. But anyway, I've got the first one installed. I'm going to pull these wires through, get the second one installed, and then repeat the process over on the other side of the wing. One more building tip: as you go along, just check and make sure that your servos are working. The way these servo wires are, when they get pushed into these holes, they can get damaged. So I have not had one get damaged yet on this build, but I just wanted you to see I do hook up the radio to the servos as I install them, and I test them just to make sure they're working as I go. That way I don't end up installing them, get the airplane ready to go, and then lo and behold there's a dead servo. Alright, so I've got all 4 servos installed, and I have also started installing the control horns. In addition to that, I've gone ahead and cut the 2 little skewers, if you will. I guess they really are probably dowel rods, but I cut those so that the ailerons and flaps are separated now. And if you're curious as to how the control horns go in, they just have these little locking collars on them. You separate that locking collar, you stick it through the aileron, and you put that locking collar or locking plate, whatever you want to call it, onto the back side of the control horn. So I'm going to go ahead and get those installed and then start looking at putting on the control horn, or the control rods rather. And that's what your control rods look like. They did send... Alright, actually I tell you what, I'll show you that in the next segment whenever I go to install. So this is what I was going to show you in terms of the push rods. These are pretty typical of Horizon Hobby type clevises. They send you a clevis that goes into your control horn that has a nylon or plastic end, and you've got a little bit of rubber tubing that goes around to secure it in place. I'm not a huge fan of these. That's not to say they don't work, they absolutely do, and I am going to go ahead and install these for this build. Being that this plane is so light, probably doesn't matter too much, but I do prefer ball joint type clevises, and at some point in the future I might end up switching these out for some ball joint type clevises, but as of right now I'm going to go ahead and install these. This is what it looks like. So that's in your control horn. Come up here to the control arm on your servo, and whenever you have these set, this is not set yet, you take this little locking collar, you put it on the control horn, and it holds it in place. These I don't mind. Up here I don't mind it, here I do. So now I have all of the control surfaces for the wing hooked up, and you'll be able to see why I went with a 4 servo setup. As you see, they act as normal aileron control surfaces, but if I go to put the flaps down, I've actually got a little bit of crow in there, so I can dive this airplane pretty quickly with the power back, and it'll fall out of the sky very slowly. So that's going to make for some interesting flight characteristics. So I know it might irritate some of you that I didn't show the install of these, but I have to say that I'm quite pleased with the setup for the rudder and elevator. The fact that they have this little brace here, now, like I said, I've been out of the RC game for a while, but this is a nice touch, putting this fiberglass reinforcement here on the tail wheel. If you have a rough landing or you start getting caught up on the tail wheel with some tall grass, that's going to save your airframe. As far as the setup for the servos, that was really nice. They have channels that come back so that you can basically hook either side of the control surface up to either one of these servos. So it doesn't really matter which one you put where. But anyway, as you can see, I've got the elevator and the rudder hooked up. So we'll go ahead now and see about getting some of these electronics installed into the airframe. So I'm installing the motor and the ESC right now, and I figured before I finalize the install on those, I would go ahead and show you what I'm using. This is a Flash Hobby motor. There we go, 910 kV, and I'm using a 40 amp programmable ESC. Brand here again doesn't really matter. It's all Chinesium. So I'm going to go ahead and get that installed. I am installing it a bit different than what's recommended in the instructions. The cables here going to the ESC are rather short, as is the battery cable, or excuse me, the ESC wires going to the motor. Anyway, they're short, so I'm going to be installing them inside of the battery compartment, not on the tray right here, if it'll focus. There we go. Not on the tray where the ESC was supposed to be installed. And there you can see the radio installed, and I do have the airplane powered up right now because I was getting all the servos set. I did use double-sided tape, and I used an exterior grade double-sided tape to attach all this stuff. By the way, the AR 8000, that's an older radio, and I am running one with a satellite. That's 8 channels. I'm only using 7, but theoretically you could use the 8th channel to do reversing on the motor, because this ESC does accommodate that. But anyway, this is the airplane pretty much together. The only thing left to do is to install the prop and spinner. Okay, so we went ahead and got the prop installed along with the spinner, and I did go with a prop here that's a little bit smaller than I wanted. This is an 11 by 5.5. The reason I had to go with a smaller diameter prop is to just get ground clearance. You can see here we've got plenty. We can actually go a little bit negative on pitch without touching the ground. The prop I initially had planned for this was a 13-inch prop, but like I said, I don't have the ground clearance. The good news is I am planning to use 4-cell batteries, so even with the 11-inch prop, I should be able to get the RPMs that I need out of this 910 kV motor. So that's that done. You can look in here, you can see I've got the strap installed for the battery along with the Velcro base. I used some double-sided Gorilla Tape for that, so that's done nicely. You can see where the ESC is installed. It's installed with Gorilla Tape as well. And of course, I went ahead and started putting the stickers on the airplane. So we've got the Ultra Stick stickers, Spectrum, and some custom ones as well. I went ahead and put my logo on there, as well as my own little custom stickers on the horizontal stabilizer. Anyway, it's looking good. The only thing we've got to do now is get a battery in it, make sure the weight and balance is good, and go fly it.